regular do.
In the endless reaches of the universe, there once existed a planet known as Krypton, a planet that burned like a green star in the distant heavens. There, civilization was far advanced and had brought forth a race of supermen whose mental and physical powers were developed to the absolute peak of human perfection.
Can we call this little show deal? Because
I'm right, you're wrong.
All right, as long as I say the name of the show every time, then yeah, we can call it that. How about because something like pro-con or props contrary or procon something.
Procreation.
There it is. All right, so this is Procreation, the show.
I'll show you how to do it. We're two brothers.
We're talking about, so Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So what we're doing is one person has to be pro.
The best movie of the series.
One person has to be con. And right now, the guy on the top... Oh, by the way, hey, brother.
Hey, brother.
We haven't got to do that in so long.
Yeah.
So the guy on the top, he should be pro, but he's con on Episode 1.
Well, I got to tell you, though, because I just watched it.
Yeah.
And I decided I was going to be con. And as soon as I watched it, I was just blown away with how right I was. Con. It's so bad.
Well, I'm glad you think so.
You're a lawyer for a living, and I have the upper hand.
I'm glad you think so. But so bottom is pro, and then we switch back and forth for each one. So we've got, 9 of these things to do now in this series?
As long as we don't count Rogue One or Solo.
Oh, right. Which we don't. So... yeah, we're just gonna do the canon.
We can both agree Rogue One was good, Solo was crap.
We both, on some scale, we can agree on that. Yeah, on some scale. But
as good as it could get.
Yeah.
Well, not as bad as it can get, obviously, because we both just watched Episode 1.
Wow, already tried to walk me into it. Objection sustained. Okay, so we've got. Yeah, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, we don't have any... It's not parliamentarian or anything like that. I've been doing a lot of those kind of debates lately where it's really structured and you can only talk to the the guy in the white wig about, your criticisms of the person who just spoke. So it's like, oh, the lady with the stupid face who just said this. You can't talk directly
I assume that a lot of them have stupid faces.
Yeah,
That would be so hard to not call that out.
It's so bad. But so this is pretty freeform. I figured we'd do like an opening statement, and then after the opening statement, then it's just guerrilla warfare, and we can.
I also watch Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh, you have a
Godzilla, so it sucks to you.
Damn it! You have a hand up, large primate hand up on this. This is gonna be rougher than I thought. So. Opening statement, then just open guerrilla warfare. Heckler's veto is in effect if you want to do it that way. But otherwise, we'll just do it. All right, so I'm going to do my openings. I'm pro. Pro goes first. We've established.
Sounds fair.
So, when it comes to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, it is literally the greatest movie to have ever been created. This is something that cannot be challenged. It's unambiguous. It's insurmountable. The amount of goodness that is in this film. And it is amazing because I'm trying to count the pages and it just keeps going and going and going because actually in Apple Notes, it doesn't have pages. It just scrolls. So it's an infinite number of pages, really, depending on how you cut them up, of positive things about this movie. So that being the case, obviously I can rest. And since the opposing counsel didn't make any objections to my opening statement, then you can take all of it as completely 100% true. So thank you, Your Honor. Go ahead, Con.
Well, I just wanted to finish or start by congratulating you for having the screen face the right way for this, because obviously you had it backwards when you started the movie.
He's got like setups.
It immediately comes out with Qui-Gon just straight up dismissing, like you can automatically tell right at the beginning.
This is supposed to be your opening statement, not the actual meat of the deal.
All right. Without going into detail, this movie tested my patience beyond almost anything that I've ever seen.
Okay. Yeah.
Earlier today, I literally cleaned up dog diarrhea, and that was far more enjoyable. And I'm not kidding, far more enjoyable than this movie. Midichlorians. I mean, so many just things that are just so wrong
It's a good
with this.
word.
It's obvious that George Lucas took the worst of every dad joke, mom joke, and any sort of joke you can get from people under, say, 70 and over 45 that he possibly could, and just culled them for the thickest turds to just shove at us.
All right. Objection, hearsay. You don't know bird law, so I'm just gonna.
Well, if there were birds in this movie, maybe I could have got on board.
All right.
But
so I guess
yeah,
we could
so
move. Is that your? You can.
yeah, that'll be my opening
That's your
statement.
opening. All right. All right. So we can move into the case in chief. The first thing I'm going to talk about is that it is excellent for germaphobes. So germaphobes can enjoy this and say, "Oh, look at that! The real world doesn't have any dirt, smudge, bacteria, or anything else." So that's a positive for them.
So if Niles Crane became a vegetable, then he could put up with this movie and be happy with it.
That's I'm not sure why he needed a vegetable angle on him, but
because his brain needs to be complete mush. He could have a thought that he'd hate it.
I don't. So went from Niles Crane. All right. So that's my first point. Go ahead with your first con.
So my first con is that it becomes extremely obvious very quick that nobody knows what the hell is going on. So they show up for a meeting where Ewan McGregor is very clearly, or Obi-Wan, whatever you want to call him in this, he forgets who he is halfway through the movie and keeps turning into himself. Because it's the only bright spot is when he forgets his character.
His
and just turns into himself for a second and says something cool on accident. But he's like, there's something wrong here. And Qui-Gon's like, there's no way there's anything wrong here. And then he immediately flips the script after like 2 minutes of waiting, and they're in there. Do we usually wait this long? And Qui-Gon immediately just switches his tone. There's something wrong here. And they just cannot make up their mind on anything. It sets the tone that the writing cannot get any worse. And then it just does. It starts out bad, and you're just like, well, okay.
Okay, I have to point out first, that you just flipped your own script while you're talking about them flipping their script. So your joke setup undermines your own point.
It sets the tone that the writing cannot get any worse, and then it just does.
Just make sure that's clear. Point that out for the record. But so that is a pretty salient but completely invalid point that was totally made there. Was there anything else about Ewan McGregor and them flipping their script?
Well, not necessarily about that. I'm just thinking about that opening sequence and how terrible it was. How, like, on this starship, their security cameras are so bad that they lose track of, like, you went into the ventilation shaft, and then all of a sudden they're running around sneaking like they didn't have freaking cameras everywhere. Their holograms were just all glitchy. It's like, we're Zoom calling right now on Earth without the ability for a starship, and every time they were talking to a hologram, it's just and like losing connection. It looks like garbage.
Okay, we do kind of have better hologram. Tupac was pretty stable when he was.
Yeah, if Tupac was in this movie as a hologram, that would have been a lot more believable than the holograms.
Well, so I detract all of those things, which is an improper use of that word, but that's why I used it for this particular purpose.
I didn't understand it anyway.
All right, so my second pro point is Ewan McGregor. The guy is amazing. He was in The Island, where he played a clone of himself. So that he could give himself organs because his other self had sexually transmitted diseases. When you can establish that as like an actor or a character, because it kind of bleeds over to Obi-Wan, then you know that that's a fantastic part of a movie. It's just there's nothing else that you can say about that. Also, like you said, he goes in and out of his accent, which is just delightful. It gives complexity to the character that didn't otherwise necessarily have it with George Lucas's writing. So that's a little extra. And he also, awesome fight. The guy, did you see all those like videos of him busting up lightsabers when they were practicing? with the actually when they were doing the duels and everything to get ready for the shooting. He was one of the most aggressive lightsaber duelists that you could ever imagine. He kept breaking the lightsabers when he was doing it, which is awesome. Ewan McGregor for doing that. So
Tell me when he breaks a real lightsaber, then I'll be impressed.
Ewan McGregor, can you even break a real lightsaber? Is that a thing?
If he did, then I'd be impressed.
Because I feel like you can't break light, so that doesn't. Anyway, so Ewan McGregor, huge positive pro for Star Wars Episode 1. Plus, he's like at this age range of Ewan McGregor is like just the perfect one. It just seems right because he can still be that little cocky dickhead guy. Too perfect, it makes it a con.
Like maybe you were right on the right track with the island. Like he's making these clones for organs. And then he comes across this clone that's so useless and has no good organs, especially the brain, that he ships him off to George Lucas to star in his fucking Star Wars movie.
It's possible. I mean, the next movie is called The Clone Wars.
Worst version of Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. Well, I think that he's a pretty awesome guy just in general. He's the one guy in the world, mind you, that Louis C.K. would have sex with. So, again, huge points for that. That's at least 10 points. And all I have to do is get to 15.
He will at least show his dick to almost anybody.
Well, yeah, he'll show his dick, but that's the whole thing. That's like a party favor for Louis C.K. That's not the entree. So
let's be fair. Are there many people that wouldn't have sex with Ewan McGregor?
You made my point. Thank you very much. Okay, Con, go ahead.
Ewan McGregor.
go.
Sorry, I was just fangirling for a second there. All right, let's bring up something that's obviously glaring through this movie.
What's glaring?
Is rampant pedophilia.
Whoa. Okay, so this is going to be a tough. This is going to be a tough counter argument. Okay, go ahead.
There's this looks like at least 20-year-old queen that gets infatuated, turns out to be sexually, with somebody that is too short to get in their own damn pod racer. Has Qui-Gon pick him up like a toddler to put him in there.
Okay.
This is upsetting, at least.
She's 14, by the way. The character is 14. Natalie Portman might be a pedophile.
Does that make it okay to bang a 6-year-old?
I don't think.
She's in high school.
So there was no banging on screen. They did not show any of that. That was all only implied. So
they went in a confession booth.
So therefore, it was very tastefully done. Any kind of pedophilia. So I think that's good, at least. Were there any? I mean, there were a bunch of other little kids hanging around, but there was no implied pedophilia.
Everybody was into kids in this movie.
No, they weren't. They were not into kids. That is an invalid, excessive statement.
How old was Jar Jar?
We don't really know that. But did he bang anybody?
He could be like 5. He could be like 5.
Did he bang anybody? He didn't bang anybody.
Probably.
I mean, he was licking the laser between the pod racer.
Yeah.
And the pod racer, the way it's set up, it's kind of like women's legs. So, I mean, there is that. Yep. But
and the Gungan King tried to motorboat everybody long distance.
And my tongue went numb when I did that, too. So. Yeah, there's some questionable sexual content for this kind of a movie.
I mean, Jar Jar was playing with all those blue balls. I mean, really?
Whoa. Were they always blue? I think they were always blue. I feel like some of them turned pink once
until he made them release.
Explode. Yeah. There are a lot of maybe intentional sexual innuendo going on in here.
Most of the ships looked like dicks.
No, they didn't. There was the tanks looked like, what did the tanks look like? Stingrays with like a barnacle on the top.
Racer.
It has 2 separate things.
Balls, yes. And they drive the whole
long
system.
And straight and have like nuclear powered propulsion in them, then you need to see a doctor.
There's literally no other way to hit the G spot. You need that much power.
No, that's excessive. That's excessive. You'd blow her in half. You know, it's like if Superman has sex with somebody.
Blow her mind.
It's like a shotgun. That's not gonna work right. But that's what. Now we're back to pro, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Good luck.
The racism is subtle. It could be. It could be more overt, where they just say, yes, these are Asian people who were pretending to be fish, and yes, this is a tall black person that were pretending to not be able to speak properly. So they could have done that, but they did not do that. They let it be subtle. The explicit racism.
The fact that you have your blinders on is not an excuse for you. I had it in my notes that the racism was aggressive.
Well, it could be more
Maybe I
extreme.
just opened my eyes to it. Just seriously, how can you not imagine the Federation as the most blatant Chinese like caricature possible?
I
As
thought
just
Korean, so exactly. I thought Korean, so I don't
because
think
you
you
think
can.
all those people look the same.
No, because I mean, all fish people look the same, except for that one that they cut to.
Did you have a hard time telling the difference between the Gungans and the Federation?
No, I got those, but what they actually were
The
the
Gungans were like
saviors.
people from Louisiana.
Gungans were the
They spoke
saviors.
broken English. They lived in a wet ass swamp below sea level.
True.
They were completely useless for the most part until we
They
shoved them
won
in
at the
hole.
end. They were the whole thing that won the whole thing for everybody. If it wasn't for them,
You mean
everybody
them
would have
getting
lost.
captured and then Anakin accidentally turning off all the droids? You call that a victory for them? They distracted. They were the infantry there.
I shouldn't have let you pick. So
Hey, I'm
no,
defending
but
Clone Wars next, so
they held off though. They held it together for a long time, and they specifically what's her name, Padme Amidala, when she did her little thing. She was like, she got on her knees and said, I'll pleasure you if you do this or whatever. But
that was pretty obvious.
the Gungans specifically said, "Oh, you're saying that you're not better than us?" And then he did his motorboating thing, and he was saying, "Look, oh my gosh, yeah, we're all the same, and this is great." So they got to elevate themselves to equal whatever. So even though they were a stereotype and obviously less racist, though obviously still less racist than they could be, because none of them were walking around with buckets of fried chicken. None of them were negative stereotypes. It was just the absolutely terrible speaking patterns that were obviously, about black Americans from the South, 50 years ago. So
George Lucas does not care about Gungan people.
that's true. That is true. I think he changed the name of them too. He called them Goongas at one point when he was talking about them. So he doesn't care about them. That's very true. So are we back to con now?
Yeah, we could pick another con.
All right, what's a con?
How about the fact that whenever they use their force powers, they either use them extremely effectively or so half-assed it's hilarious. And what I mean is, so when they're like doing their force push, like in the beginning, Ewan McGregor knocks down like 5 droids out of the way. All right, let's move on. Just get them out of here. Then they go back to Naboo a little bit later, and Qui-Gon goes to use his force powers. There's like 7 of them standing there. Only one of them falls over. Well, the rest of them are still shooting at him, and all of them missing, I'm guessing. It's like, why wouldn't he just knock them all over? Why can't we get some consistency with these powers?
Objection misstates the evidence. You exaggerated the number that Obi-Wan knocked down at one time. He only did 2, not 5. And when Qui-Gon did it, he did only do 1 amidst the crowd, but that's just the difference of 1, not the difference of 1 versus 5.
So the master can only knock down 1 and the apprentice can knock down 2?
That's all he felt like doing at that moment because he was handling it just fine. Those guys were never an issue. Remember when George Lucas said, yeah, these guys are pretty useless. The Jedi cut them down like butter. Remember when he said that in the documentary? Yeah, exactly. So they didn't care.
So why create droids that can be cut down like butter and with terrible accuracy?
Well, they don't use them for Jedi fighting most of the time.
Obama's drones can hit a target.
They can, but he doesn't use those for Jedi fighting either. So
He should.
Those droids
should get some Obama drones.
are meant to subjugate populations of people who just corral themselves into little groups all the time for some reason. So like the Naboo.
Like Obama drones. That's
exactly what they're Naboo and Syrians, they're pretty much the same. So, yeah.
More racism that we didn't even know we got.
Yeah, I think that's there's not a whole lot to that. I don't know that it's inconsistent. There were sometimes like when he showed they were good about showing that he could use the mind power, over some people like the Gungan
Use
guy,
it.
but not be able to use it over Quado or whatever his name is. What's his name? What's the
It was Quado
it was
from
Quado.
yeah,
Quaid,
from
start the
Total Recall.
reactor. Yeah.
Yep.
So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And yeah, somehow it's a little world breaking if you can just use force powers anytime. Why not use them all the time? So they could have established better that it was like, it's a reserve or something. You can only use so much at a time, and then you have to wait for it to
Right out. They could have
recharge.
put a little health bar over him or something.
Right.
This is
So.
like slowly depleting.
So I don't know. Oh, so lightsaber use. Lightsabers, awesome. The one thing that always stuck out to me when I first saw this was how awesome it was when Qui-Gon put the lightsaber in the door when he's trying to break through, and then they close the special blast doors, and then he just shoves it in again and shoves it in a little more, and they just like, he's still coming through. I always loved how you could just use a lightsaber for that. That's awesome. And then the lightsaber fights, obviously, with Darth Maul and when they're double fighting and all that stuff. Just the sound of the lightsabers and everything about lightsabers. So that's a plus.
A cut of that where they took Owen Wilson's voice saying "Wow," and changed every lightsaber noise to that, and it was so much fun. I highly recommend looking it up.
Man, maybe.
Well, let's jump back to when Qui-Gon was cutting through that door.
Yeah.
Did you notice how oddly small the hole was that he was started cutting? Like he's got a lightsaber where he could just cut a large opening that they could walk through, but instead he's making like a little 3-foot maybe opening that they would have had to kind of like jump and duck through molten metal to get through anyways.
Yeah.
And then the blast doors close, and it's like, all right, I'll make a little pinhole and I'll turn into liquid to swim through this thing. What his plan was at this point to just like stab it in there, just trying to show off.
No, I think it was like, I don't know, licking a donut hole or something. Do people do that? It's like he would go like this, swirl his way outwards.
Dude, that's how you're gonna get kicked out of Krispy Kreme. Like, not okay.
Yeah, I don't know. They were gonna do something though.
All right, so I'm gonna break the mold only slightly. I know this is the first one that we're going through, but I'm still gonna break the mold slightly. I'm gonna bring up one pro.
Oh, that
And
I haven't thought of. Okay, do it.
Here's the pro that I wanted to bring up is that you and I can both agree that Anakin is arguably so bad that he makes every other movie we've ever seen for the rest of our lives a little bit better. Because we're so grateful that he doesn't exist in any other movie. So he gave up on movies after this.
You just that was a bit double-edged. I'm just gonna say it.
I'm trying to level with you.
It could have been just a nice pro that we could build a bridge, but you just were like, oh, here's the bridge, and then you threw it in the river. Yeah, it is good that we didn't have to see him again, although, I don't know, maybe he could have had a career after this. Who knows?
He was replaced with potential Oscar award-winning Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, he played Something Glass in a movie where he played a journalist who made up stories. So, yeah, that was Oscar-worthy, or at least... I think there was a guy named Oscar in that movie. So, yeah, close, exactly.
So, I mean, like,
that's what I'm saying.
It's just like a little bit of foreshadowing into the next movie that we get to watch, which is kind of amazing.
All right, what's your con?
Oh man, there's so many. Let's go over the Queen's little switcheroo ruse that she had going.
Damn it, I had this as a pro. Go ahead.
But here's the thing, is she's gonna be with her little bodyguard all the time and they get captured. What does she think is gonna happen? They're just gonna like grab the Queen and be like, all right, the rest of you can go. Enjoy your day. We got what we wanted. This one's got the makeup on. Or like, no, just grab all of them. We're gonna kill them all. And we're gonna make this one sign. And it's like after this one signs and they kill them all anyways. So like what was her plan if they got caught and they take her assistant that looks like the Queen? I just don't understand the benefit to that.
That is, I mean, absolutely a horrible point, obviously, but so I'm gonna go.
Take 10 minutes to think of why.
I'm gonna go ahead and Where did I have that one? Oh, I said it was the biggest twist in movie history. It was bigger than the end of The Usual Suspects. It was bigger than, The Sixth
What's in the
Sense.
box?
It was, yeah, what's in the box? It was just like everybody was on the edge of their seat. Like, who's the real queen? And then, they're like, oh my god, it's actually Padme. I'm so blown away.
And then also her first major action as queen when she finally steps out is to like bow down to somebody else.
Yeah,
It's like she is the worst queen ever.
Yeah,
She
no, that
leaves,
wasn't.
leaves her planet, lets everybody get enslaved and killed, and then comes back and bows to some other ruler.
So, also, it means that we got both Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman in one movie. And we got to realize that they kind of look alike when they're in makeup. So, that was
We
a
got
huge
Natalie
pro.
Portman and Mila Kunis in one movie, and that was way better.
That was a little better. Yeah, you're right about that.
I want to see a Darren Aronofsky directed Star Wars.
All right, what are we on now?
Oh, I don't remember. Closing arguments?
No, you just did a con. So, are you almost out of cons already?
Well, the whole movie is a big con, so I'm having a hard time not just jumping around.
What time did we start this thing?
Game time.
Game
Obviously.
time, right. All right, so I have about 14 more pros that I have to go through. So this pro is, you mightn't be saying that, because you used to say that to me, like, every day. Like, and he'd say it to Mom, and it'd just come out of nowhere. So if he hadn't said that, we wouldn't have had that for so long. So that's a major pro.
Did I indulge you with it for like 8 years?
Yeah.
All right.
And then Natalie Portman is Keira Knightley. Learning that in real life those are the same people. I mean, that's an important thing to know too. So we got that from this movie.
That booty.
Darth Maul, obviously, guy's amazing.
Gene Simmons.
He's short, but he's amazing.
It's Gene Simmons.
James what?
Gene Simmons.
Oh, it's Gene Simmons?
Yeah, with a double-ended dildo, and I had to watch him on TV.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Kiss.
I didn't see it before, but yeah,
Obviously identical.
I remember when he.
I was told it was devil music. It was just always in black and white because it was so old. Watching footage of Kiss, and it turns out the makeup was actually red.
Right, that's true.
Not only does their music suck, but their movies suck too.
Yeah, because that was when they were locked in those, those door things. When they were waiting for the security things to move. I remember him sticking his tongue out and saying "Loose Lois." So.
Yep, he did say that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
You're right.
Yep.
Okay, so then we had Jar Jar stepped in it. So there were multiple poop jokes related to Jar Jar. That's a
And Sebulba.
And Sebulba. Yeah, he said poodoo when he'd crashed.
Most ridiculously stupid way. You just got in a violent accident, which you could have been killed.
Yeah.
Like, poodoo. Could you imagine like Jeff Gordon doing like 8 barrel rolls through the center in a fiery crash at NASCAR and then coming out and being like, oh, shucks. It's like, no.
Yeah, so that's obviously a plus. No, there's one that's like legit. Is that when they're like at dinner with Annie and his mom or whatever, and
he grabs Jar Jar's tongue.
Yeah, that part. So he said right before that he was like, Jedi have amazing reflexes, and then he grabs his tongue right after he says that. I never realized that correlated right there. Until I watched it this time. I'd never noticed that before. Yeah. That Jedi have amazing reflexes.
Of those, like at the end when they're talking about like how there's always 2 Sith, no more, no less. Like, which one did we kill? The master of the, and then it just like close-up shots Palpatine's face.
Does it really?
Like, like, right here, like he's like, I'm gonna tell you about.
Yeah. I didn't notice that.
There's quite a bit of just like laying out everything. Like all of the expositions are just so like.
There's a lot of exposition talk. Yeah, and friggin' what's his name? Qui-Gon lies a lot. He's really.
Maybe he's the other Sith, and Darth Maul is trying to save him.
So that's one thing is that it's something that could be a complex character, but you'd think if it's George Lucas, he's not writing a complex character. So. You would think that it's just kind of overlooked that Qui-Gon's always doing shady things. But he does do a lot of shady things. Like he
Yeah.
cheats at gambling and he lies to Annie and
He uses his forced persuasion way too much.
yeah,
Like
uses
nobody has
that.
free will around him.
Yeah, it's screwed up. He tries to use
Imagine him
that.
like going out at night and it's like, "You will go home with me."
Exactly.
Imagine if Qui-Gon were to take Liam Neeson's daughter from Taken. Now that's a movie I'd want to see because I assume Qui-Gon will be that evil to do that sort of thing on the side, not tell anybody, obviously.
So Liam Neeson would be chasing down Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn?
Yes.
All right.
And then they would realize they're both the same person in the middle of the car chase.
Right. And then he's like, wait, who's following me? And realizes he's in the car that's chasing and being chased. Is that what you're saying?
With the horse as a passenger. Tell him to stop the car. You're driving too crazy.
Yeah, I want to see this movie. What the hell is there's a virgin birth? So you didn't expect that.
Some other loser with sandals.
The one little girl is like the best actress or actor in the entire movie who says it's never gonna run. She delivers that line perfectly. It's like a pitch perfect delivery of that line. She was 100% committed to that character.
I will give you that because it's the only line delivered perfectly in the entire movie. She's the best actress by far.
It cuts both ways. Yeah. Pod racing is awesome.
On Nintendo 64 only.
That game was so cool.
But like in this on the pod racing though, he passes easily 4 times as many people are in the race, and half of them die on the first lap.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're watching him, he gets the thing going finally, after he gets his trip up at the starting line. Then he passes like 6 pods, and then he keeps going. And then every time it shows him like fix some sort of problem, he passes like another 6 pods, like swerving between them. And it's like there was like 10 at the starting line. It's like he either lapped everybody except for Sebulba 3 times, or they just added people on into the middle of the race just so they could pass them.
It is a shady competition. I mean, they didn't have sufficient regulation to prevent the sand people from shooting at them while they're crossing that one area. And there weren't a whole lot of Tusken Raiders. All right.
Yeah,
all right. That's my bad. But there weren't a whole lot of like security around. People probably just swerved in. You know that part where it has all those openings that everybody's going through? People probably just threw in just there to add themselves to the race, ahead of everybody. So I just think that was showing how corrupt the system was that's run by the Hutts.
Aliens are hatched in massive batches, so there's like 10 of one of them.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. So that's true.
Just a bunch of cheaters.
Yeah. Oh, and the kid who says, "This is so wizard, Annie."
This is so wizard.
Remember that kid? Because then right after that, he says
that to Annie.
He says, because Padme asks him, like, he says something about, well, you'll certainly do it this time. And then Padme's like, do what? And he's like, finish the race, of course.
The race, of
And
course.
it was maybe the worst line read I've ever seen. He had such like just fake contempt on his face, and he just holds his face right there. I just want to punch him in the face every time. And so that's a good
testament to the directing prowess of George Lucas.
Exactly. So that's a good
he
one.
can get somebody to look so bad on screen. I assume they're that bad in real life too, but to capture that's special.
Yeah. Then Natalie Portman cry face. You remember that when she's in the Senate and she's like, she looks like she's crying while she's talking.
I got kind of uncomfortable.
It's a little discomforting. Yeah.
I kind of want to just ask you, like, is this okay, or like, should I go home? Or
yeah, that one's a little weird. They use laser pointers to communicate at the end. One has a blue one has a red one. So that's some pretty fancy tech for a war.
Where they have laser blasters and
and they can't just like use an Apple Watch and be like, we're here or something.
They got holograms
or wave. Because, I mean, they could see each other, so why not just wave? So the pro is that they had the technology, and they just decided to mix it up by throwing that in, even though they didn't need it. And then the music, obviously, was it John Williams or Hans Zimmer?
John Williams.
John Williams, yeah. Darth Maul fight music. I mean, that's just classic.
That was a rip-off of One Wing Angel, and you know it.
Damn it! You're so right. And then the final one, of course, the most important thing from all of these movies is when Anakin says, "Now this is pod racing."
Now this is
When he's pod racing, when he's like flying a ship through another ship that he accidentally blew up.
Yeah, that was a very important moment that has been used over and over again by many people. So
No wonder he can't finish a race. He doesn't understand what pod racing is.
Yeah, that's true.
Flying into stuff and blowing things up. And like, dude, no, you're supposed to just go in circles. He's like, no.
He's like playing with Legos. He's like, now this is pod racing. His mom's like, God, that kid's an idiot.
He like finishes his soup and he's like, no, this is pod racing. Just gets it wrong so much. Wow.
Yeah, and the one time he doesn't say it is when he's actually pod racing.
Yeah. I honestly think the only line that he ever delivered that I cared about was when he's on his pod racer and he finally gets it started and he says, "It's working."
I had that as one of my pros. Yeah. But those are my pros. Do you want to do like final statements?
Yeah, so do you want me to start since you started?
Yeah, it flips. So yeah. So Khan does final first, yeah.
All right, so after watching that movie, I remember leaving the theater when I was 12 or 11, whenever it came out, Newport Cinemas, way back in the day.
Right.
I remember seeing it there.
Was that the one
all the way up there,
like out in the desert where it was at the Y or whatever?
Yep, way up at the Y.
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
We went up there. We took a bus up there to see it.
Yeah.
And leaving that theater and thinking like, that was cool. After watching it today, I realized literally the only cool thing was instead of just a regular lightsaber, the Devil Man had a double-sided one, and he was really good at using it and did flips when he did it. And luckily, that was like almost the last thing that I saw, so I forgot all of what happened before, like 100% of it. And also being so young that I couldn't understand how bad the story was. Just these like massive, just like lapses in judgment by these supposed like trained moral leaders in the Jedi, and how bad they are at their job, how bad they are at giving advice, how like wildly inconsistent this whole like massive future past world, or more advanced world is supposed to be. The way that they have Senate meetings where they have to float around to talk to each other and they can't stay still. It's like, why are you floating over? There's like so many things that are just glaring that they weren't thought through. It was just a rambling old man that wanted to put a bunch of stuff that he thought looked cool on screen, and he did, and nobody was there to stop him. And we were all victim to it.
Okay, that's a pretty strong closing. This was, what was it, like 96 that this came out or something like that? Or whatever, but, or 2000, I don't remember when it came out. But whenever it came out, it was a big deal. It was the next step that would finally lead us to an abortion, a few years later, that was directed by J.J. Abrams. So...
Oscar award-winning director J.J. Abrams.
Did he win an Oscar for something?
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
All right. So if we never had this movie, then we wouldn't have. Well, we would have had the original three, which were way better. But we wouldn't have had
some of them.
The
final. I don't know
final.
which ones I'm defending yet, so I'm not going to tell you which ones they were.
We would not have had the final ones, which were abortions, and it's their movie, so it's their choice. And that's an important sentiment to get across in my
That's
closing
why they were
argument.
able to abort
That's
the
why they were
Menace.
able to abort it. They
'Cause
bought it.
it's
They get to abort it. Yeah, that's right.
their movie, their choice.
That's right. So, all right. Any like closing thoughts about episode 1? Like out of character closing thoughts that you
Out
want
of character.
Yeah.
No, like rewatching it, like honestly, it was bad, but it wasn't all bad. And I tried like watching it through the lens of like when we were kids, we watched the original Star Wars. So things like the Ewoks, which are garbage characters
Yeah.
and weird teddy bears that they threw in there for some reason. And like we loved them as kids. I tried to rewatch it thinking about that with characters like Jar Jar who suck as an adult to be put through.
Yeah.
But I can see like why kids would think he's funny. He's making fart jokes, you
Right.
know. And so like I was kind of trying to understand that like it wasn't necessarily a movie made for me, or not necessarily for me as an adult, but for me as a kid.
Yeah.
Which makes it easier to look over, you know, so much of the garbage.
Right.
But yeah, even with that lens though, it sucked.
It's pretty bad. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kept thinking that it felt like it was so far behind, like emotionally and intellectually, where it was just like there was so much childish aspect to it, and but there were things. So there's a fantastic movie that could be pulled out of this if you just took the elements that were put in place and then redid it in the right way. Because the world itself is actually really complex. You know, it has a bunch of different moving parts that are set in place, and you could see how they could interact with each other in interesting ways. But the way George Lucas does it is like just a toddler who's, you know, tossing paint onto his mom's face or whatever, and that's how he's
On a chessboard.
yeah.
It's like the big one jumps this one. No.
So it's really frustrating because, you know, even having the dumbest idea of starting a Star Wars franchise out with a trade war, it's like, oh my gosh, that's super exciting. Like if you have the Trade Federation, that's a moving part. You have the Sith in the background. You have the Senate. You have you know, the Jedi, and all of them have different interests, and you can see how that could be complex. But then you just do it in such a stupid way that it's so annoying. And then you throw in Jar Jar, you know, our funniest character, as George Lucas said. This is a funnier character than we've ever done. If he works, he's the key to everything. And that's what he said. But
That's embarrassing.
yeah, you throw that nonsense in, and you just completely just screw the whole thing up. So it's really frustrating. But you know, it's still, I get nostalgia for sure watching it, because I went and saw that like 3 times along with Austin Powers that summer. You know, when it came out, and it was just like I have such huge nostalgia of just waiting for that Darth Maul fight at the end every time.
Oh yeah.
And then seeing Austin Powers right afterwards. So it's just a whole bunch of stuff. But
Well, that Darth Maul fight was pretty badass. And I was like looking
It's
at
awesome.
the choreography for it, and it's
Yeah.
like that was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
'cause it was real like movements and everything with these lightsabers. And when they finally like they put the sabers in there, it was like everything lined up, everything matched up with like all of the hits.
Right.
And to have like 2 people facing one guy with like the double ended like at the same time to go against it, that was pretty freaking sweet.
Yeah, it's tough to
Whoever
do.
did the choreography there was awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. But anyway, so that's episode 1.
Woo!
So next time you get to be no, you get to be pro for episode 2, the Attack of the Clones.
Yep.
And I get to be
So
con.
that movie is highly recommended by Oscar from The Office.
Does
loves
he?
it.
Does he say that?
Oh no.
Oh,
But his name's
it's just
Oscar,
because his
so
name
I'm
is
hoping
Oscar. Got it. Yeah.
if I can somehow just tie in that word as many times as possible. I'm trying to like incept you right now.
Yeah, just to make the association. So yeah, that's gonna be an interesting one. I haven't seen that in a long
Greatest
time.
romance until 50 Shades of Grey. Greatest romance movie ever.
Yeah, we'll see how it holds up. So when Harry met Sally, and then Attack of the Clones. Yeah.
I've only seen it once, so I'm really excited.
Are you
for it.
serious? Only
Yeah,
ever once?
Only ever once, and I remember
my
hating
God.
it so much the one time that I saw it. I can't wait to watch it and try and just pick the beauty out of it. I just remember in the beginning scene when they're doing that little chase, like in the flying cars,
Oh, I forgot that
how much
existed.
I
Yeah.
hated Hayden Christensen's existence there.
Yeah.
It was like when you wanted, like when you walked out of the Black Dahlia murder because Josh Hartnett was that bad of a person,
100%.
let alone an actor. He was just so bad. It's like, I'm not a man who condones suicide, but I recommend it here. It's like that's what I like. That's what I felt like watching that movie. It was that bad.
Yeah, this is
Oh.
gonna be awesome to do Attack of the Clones. I'm looking forward to it because yeah, both of us are pretty green on knowing much about it, so it's gonna be fun.
You know what'll be even more fun is
What?
next time I'm gonna try and get in depth on Star Wars lore and like canon with it, just enough.
For which
to,
one?
Like, try and back up this next movie. I want to try and get all the nerds on my side,
All right.
and then we'll all take you down together.
Yeah, I feel like I won't even have to try that hard so to do the con. So we'll
You're
see.
You're just gonna have like just different clips of the movie.
Yeah, I'll just show the movie. I'll just put that in my box instead.
It's like that's my opening statement, closing statement, you name it. Just watch it. You've seen it.
But who knows? Maybe when we rewatch it, it's not actually as bad as we thought. But maybe it's even worse. So
I'm betting on the former.
Yeah. All right, we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. So we're gonna shut this show down, so I can talk to my nephew a little bit more before we're closed down for the night. It's 9 o'clock. Oh my gosh.
Nope, it's 6. You must be dumb.
Oh, good point. So we'll do that, and then I guess we'll see everybody on the next episode. Does that work?
Side. Heck yeah.
All right. Thanks, brother. See you, brother.
Bye, brother.
Light up a lucky.
It's light up time.
Be happy, go lucky.
It's light up time.
For the taste that you like, light up a lucky strike.
Relax.
It's light up time.